This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts. I'm your spirited host, Jennifer, a professional medium and a teller of ghost stories. Dear listener, this week I am traveling with family, so I'm going to trust that the ghosts will keep you company. I've collected for you a best of ghost stories from this season that continue to linger in the corners of my mind. I will be back soon with new episodes, but in the meantime, enjoy these best of ghost stories. The spooky begins right now. My grandmother and grandfather bought a house in 1942. They had only been married 4 months, and they were very happy to finally have a house of their own. It was a beautiful 2-story home and was about 60 years old at the time they purchased it. The house had a few grandiose features. When you walked through the front door, there were 2 big parlor rooms on both your right and left, and the house also boasted a nice-sized basement. My grandmother absolutely loved her new home, to the point that she felt nothing could ever make her leave it. After a long day of moving all their furniture in, they went to bed. The next morning, my grandmother was outside planting flowers when a woman from down the street approached her and introduced herself. They talked for about an hour or so about the neighborhood and the town. The neighbor woman was about to excuse herself when she said quietly, "You do know the history of your home, right?" My grandmother said no and was interested in finding out. The neighbor started telling her about the old funeral home that used to be her new house. My grandmother was startled to hear this. After the neighbor left, she went inside to look around. She finally realized why the 2 parlors were so big. They had been viewing rooms for the deceased. This frightened her. My grandfather came in from the yard and found my grandmother in one of the parlors still walking around and thinking. She told him about what the neighbor woman had said about their home, and he said, "Oh, I don't believe that. That's just neighborhood gossip." That night, though, my grandfather couldn't sleep. He walked downstairs into one of the parlors, and he sat down to listen to a news broadcast. After about an hour, he became tired, so he thought he would go to bed. He got up, turned off the radio, and walked to the stairs. As he came out of the parlor, he was stopped by what he thought was the sound of a strong howling wind coming from out of the kitchen. The next thing he saw frightened him beyond belief. A ghostly pine casket with a woman inside it rolled through the hallway and stopped right in front of him. He let out a scream of terror that woke my grandmother, who shot out of bed and ran to him. She saw him standing there in absolute shock. She called out to him in a panic, "What's wrong?" All he could reply was, "I want out of this house. I want out." So they packed their things and went to stay with family about 10 miles away in the next town. They arrived at the family's house and told them about what occurred. The next day, my grandmother and grandfather and their family, they packed up all their things and moved out that very day. This happened when I was in college, around 2013. My family had planned to go out for the day, but I decided to stay home to finish my homework and then reward myself by watching a movie in my room. Alone in our house, I got to work on my assignments. During this time, I had this underlying feeling of just being aware of how large and empty our house felt as the evening settled in. I was never uncomfortable being alone, so I ignored the subtle uneasiness that pressed on my back. After finishing my homework, I let out a big sigh and shook the tension out of my arms. I was ready to relax and watch a movie in my bedroom. By then, it was already nighttime. I hadn't gotten up to turn on any additional lights as I worked, so the rest of the house was filled with a darkness that stretched out before me. As I was about to go upstairs, I reached for the hallway light switch. Before I could touch it, I froze at the sight before me. There, in the hallway's darkness, was a figure unlike anything I had ever seen. As best I could describe it, it resembled both a human and a giant spider. Its flesh was a sickly white that easily defined its form from that of the shadows in the hallway. Its limbs were splayed on the floor, crawling backwards at an unnatural speed. Long, dark hair trailed behind it, following its eerie, contorted body. I felt my energy drain from me, and my brain couldn't form a logical thought to deal with any of this crawling, monstrous thing. I fled to my bedroom, turned on every light available in my path, as tears just streamed down my face. I struggled to process what I had just witnessed. I ended up frantically messaging my friends, just desperate for any kind of comfort, including them telling me I must have imagined it. I tried to calm myself, but I couldn't bring myself to tell my family when they came home. I knew they would be terrified. We were all kind of really afraid of ghosts and never watched horror movies. I never saw it again, but ever since that night, I have never felt at ease when alone. The memory of that ghostly, crawling thing haunts me to this day. About 3 years ago, 2 of my friends and I were sitting in a hot tub at one of their houses. It was close to 10:30 at night. My friend lives right next to a cemetery. Not just any cemetery, an old one. The youngest grave is dated 1803. And my friend thinks her house is haunted. That night, we were messing around, joking and chatting, when we heard a noise. It sounded like a motor, like an old car engine struggling, like it needed a tune-up. At first, it didn't seem too weird, but then we saw headlights. Just headlights. No car, no shape, just floating lights, moving across the field on her property. And here's the thing. You have to know a gate code in order to get onto her lot, There's no way a random car could have gotten in. We watched for about 2 minutes, frozen, trying to make sense of what we were seeing. Then, one of my friends tried to speak. The second she opened her mouth, whatever the heck it was, just exploded. We screamed. Her dog went crazy, barking like mad. A few seconds later, her mom came running outside, demanding to know what happened. Her parents had heard the noise as well. Her parents and sister grabbed the Ranger, which is basically a souped-up golf cart, and took off down the dirt road that led to the field, looking for anything. But when they came back, they told us there wasn't a car, no debris, no tire tracks, nothing. Here's where it gets even weirder. 2 years before this happened, there was a car accident on that same road. The vehicle had flipped 6 times. We tried researching other accidents in the area, but we found nothing. Ever since that night, every time I've gone over there, we keep watch for those headlights. And we have never seen them again. I was deep in the woods and camping alone. This was something I've done before and was comfortable with the isolation. There was something peaceful about it, being just me and the wilderness. That night, though, something happened that I still cannot explain. I had set up my tent beside a quiet stream, the kind of place that made you feel like you were the only person left on Earth. As my campfire crackled, the stars twinkled in the night sky through the tree branches. After a few moments of enjoying my evening, I noticed a faint glow in between the trees. At first, I thought it was my eyes playing tricks on me. Maybe it was the reflection of moonlight on damp leaves. But then it moved, almost deliberately. It was a soft orb of pale greenish-white light, and it was floating just above the forest floor. I froze, watching it drift between the tree trunks, weaving through the undergrowth without a sound. My first thought was that it was another camper with a lantern, but it was too smooth, too ethereal. It didn't bob with footsteps. It glided. I whispered into the darkness, "Hello?" The light paused, as if it had heard me. Then it shifted, closer. Every hair on my body stood on end. There was no fear at first, just awe. It was beautiful, like something out of a dream. But then, the air around me grew heavy, thick with a damp cold that didn't belong on a mild summer night. My chest tightened with a kind of dread. I just couldn't explain it. The light flickered, and then there were two. A second orb appeared beside the first, both hovering silently, side by side. They drifted towards me slowly. I took a step back, my instincts finally screaming louder than my fascination. My foot snapped a twig, and the lights blinked out, just like that. The forest fell deathly still. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting, listening. Nothing moved, but the feeling remained, like eyes in the dark. I couldn't sleep that night, and at dawn, I packed up and left. I'll never forget those lights. They were otherworldly and ultimately creepy. A few years ago, I bartended in a dark, dank, creepy, hole-in-the-wall bar. During that time, sure, I witnessed countless weird things done by my regular living customers. This story, however, is about the poltergeist activity that I witnessed inside that bar. I was all alone at work the first time it happened. I was sitting at the bar, waiting for customers to come in, when one of the margarita glasses that was hanging upside down above the bar slid out from the overhead glass rack and broke mid-air. The broken glass, the pieces remained suspended for 2 to 3 seconds before they finally dropped, falling to the floor. It was exactly like something out of a horror movie, only it was real, happening right in front of my eyes. I told myself, I'm here alone, nobody is going to believe me. I kind of did a mental shrug and picked up the shards of glass. I never mentioned it to my boss or my coworkers. It's weird because at the time, I was more concerned that they would think I was crazy. However, now that I don't work there anymore, remembering it really creeps me out. 2 or 3 days after that, I was sitting in the same spot, and my mother was sitting next to me. This was a new job for me, and she was a little worried, so she was there to check out the place. Meanwhile, the busboy was crouched down at the fridge under the TV, stocking the beer when it happened again. My mom freaked out. Did you guys just see that? That glass just slid out on its own and broke. Did you see that? What the hell is going on here? I remember the busboy and I just looked at each other and shrugged, both admitting that, yeah, we saw it. At the time, I just felt relieved that someone else had seen it, and then I knew I hadn't been losing my mind the other day after all. When I told my mom the same thing had happened to me the other day, she asked me why I didn't tell her this before. I think it was because, like I said, I had been alone, and rather than say something to anyone, I just tried to put it out of my mind, because I couldn't rationally explain why it happened. By the time I got home from work, I had done so well putting it out of my mind, I forgot to tell her. My mom was terrified. She had never seen anything like that before, and she wanted me to quit. I stayed there for a long time after, and it never happened again. Oddly though, the busboy and I never talked about it, even though we could discuss just about everything else. When I was about 8 years old, my whole family was visiting my cousin's house. Between my cousin's family and mine, there were a lot of adults and kids of various ages, causing social commotions and chaos throughout the day. I have a loud family. In truth, the adults were occupied with their adult dealings, and the kids were left to run around and entertain themselves. At one point in the evening, a bunch of us had gathered in my cousin's bedroom, and we sat on the floor and the bed, chatting. Someone suggested that we play with a Ouija board. I couldn't even tell you at the age of 8 if I even knew what that was. My cousin didn't have a board, but she knew her friend that lived right next door did have one. A quick phone call later, and the friend arrived, weaving through the crowd of adults in the living room who were oblivious to the spirit board she carried with her. In the back bedroom, we turned out the lights, lit a candle from my aunt's Yankee candle collection, and we all gathered around the board as best we could, some to watch, while others worked the planchette. I was sitting to the side, nearly up against the bedroom wall, with view of the rest of the room beyond me as I watched the spooky proceedings. Curious, I watched as, at first, the Ouija board responded very slowly. Not much was happening, and we almost gave up, when suddenly the planchette started responding to our questions. Apparently, we were talking to a little girl ghost who used to live on the property. We asked her name. She said, Molly. We asked how old she was. The planchette moved to the number 7. Mid-sentence of asking her how she died, the lit candle gave out a large pop, and we all jumped, and a few of us muffled a scream. Suddenly, I had this eerie, heavy feeling that we were not alone. I frantically scanned the room as to what was wrong, desperately looking to see if anything was amiss, while debating whether or not to alert the others of what I was feeling. My mouth was open to protest when someone asked again how the ghost child had died. The board quickly spelled out fire, and our room was quickly filled with the strongest smell of smoke I had ever experienced. The darkened closet directly across the room from me was open, and within the hanging clothes, boxes, and shoes, I saw someone standing there. Mostly hidden in shadow, but I could distinctly see 2 bare, pale legs and feet of someone in there. The legs had burn marks on them and were smeared with soot. I screamed. Everyone quickly looked at me and then pivoted to see what I was looking at, and then they screamed too. They also saw the legs in the closet. We all screamed louder and scrambled to get away, panicking to get away from the closet and out of the bedroom. We opened the door and slammed into my uncle and other relatives who were there to see what the heck was going on. Talking over each other, we explained as best we could what had happened. My uncle checked the closet, and there was nothing there. There wasn't anything in there that we could have mistaken for legs, and I know what I saw. I remember every burned detail. My cousin was scolded for playing with a Ouija board, and the friend was sent home. The adults were convinced we just freaked each other out. But I don't know how my cousin ever slept in her bedroom again. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end of this episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed this best of spooky ghost story episode. I'm so happy to share these chilling stories with you. Do you have a favorite? Please reach out, leave a kind review, leave a comment where you can, reach out on social media. And I will be back again very soon with more spooky and the spiritual. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.
Fear Daily is a podcast that takes you into the shadows of the past, unearthing the 1990s most terrifying tales of monsters, madness, and life after death. Discovered on a forgotten bulletin board server somewhere in Pennsylvania's Rust Belt, these stories are an archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown as told by the people who experience them. Written by Brennan Storr, creator of the Ghost Story Guys, and hosted by Brandon Scheck-Snyder of Southern Gothic, Fear Daily is your window into the dark corners of our world. Follow Fear Daily today on your favorite podcatcher to receive new episodes Monday through Friday each and every week.
Hey everyone, I'm Erica.
And I'm Elizabeth.
We're sisters, wine lovers, and your hosts for the podcast Spirits Uncorked.
In season 2, we're leaving the haunted waters of Lake Lanier in Georgia and diving into all new spooky stuff. Shadow people?
I've seen them.
Haunted military bases?
I've served on one.
Local restaurants with ghostly reputations?
I work at one.
Okay, if something spooky doesn't happen to you, I worry about you.
The paranormal is my normal.
Plus, we'll sip and chat with horror authors, fascinating guests, and test out some superstitions along the way.
Knock on wood.
So uncork a bottle and pour a glass of the paranormal with us on season 2 of Spirits Uncorked.
Get ready for sips, scares, and sisterly sarcasm.